Thank y'all for tuning back in for another episode of Manifesting Pod. We have RaSun Kazadi here, former SMU football player and striving entrepreneur. So
I like the striving part, man.
We're always striving for greatness, right? I mean, we're never done. It's always you're in the pursuit of perfection.
Yeah, always strive and prosper. Shout out to A$AP Rocky.
That's right. I think of LeBron James too. Yeah. Whenever I think of always striving for greatness.
Yeah.
Because you're always striving for that perfection. And honestly, I think of your dad too. I think I referenced him on some previous podcasts. But no, we're here to really learn about you and talk about your upbringing and, you know, from sports to where you are now and where you're trying to go. So from very early on, were you always involved in sports?
Yeah, I come from a really athletic family. So my mom ran track in Tulsa. She's part of the all-decades team up there. My dad drafted in 1997. Before that, him and my mom met at Tulsa. So he was a Buckus Award semifinalist. So you got football, you got track, and then you got me just born into sports, really. So when he was drafted in 1997, I was born in 1999. By the time I was really up and moving, he was with the Buffalo Bills. He bounced around a little bit. So everywhere he went, we went. It was just the three of us at first. And yeah, man, just was always playing soccer. Played baseball when I was real young. Played football when they let me. Like, didn't start out in tackle, but did the whole flag thing, pop one or whatever it was. Yeah, man, boxed. Did everything. I did all the martial arts. We did jiu-jitsu, judo, wushu, and, you know, anything, wherever it was, it always changed because no city or state I lived in had the same sort of martial arts around it. And that was jiu-jitsu wasn't real big when I was younger. So I didn't really touch it until I was 14. So just always did a bunch of oddball things.
So getting into like junior high, where were you?
Junior high, Waco, Texas.
In Waco.
So yeah, was in Waco, Texas. Before that, Florida. So I was in Tampa.
Okay.
Class was with USF. And then right after that, ended up in Jonesboro, Arkansas, Dallas, Texas.
So going into, I guess, like junior high, that at least for me, that was always the time period when, okay, I was getting rid of some of the sports that I necessarily wasn't doing anymore, didn't care about anymore. And were you still doing a lot of the sports going into junior high?
Yeah. So I like to be out the house. If I wasn't doing that, I was painting, but I was always in football. That was big. I think I played on 2 football teams when I was in junior high. Then I went into basketball. Then after basketball, we would do track, and I was playing soccer. So I did everything. I think I had dropped baseball. That was the only thing. But my negotiation for baseball was that I was playing basketball and all that. So pick up 2 sports, drop 1.
Yeah, I was actually the opposite. I played football, track, cross country, and I actually gave up basketball to pursue baseball. Yeah. So as the main spring sport. But so you played all of those sports going through junior high, and then you went on to high school. Did you cut any sports out then?
Yeah, high school, I kind of cut everything but track and football. Like everything was just, I don't know, not really my thing by the time I grew up. But yeah, once I touched, I think, what was that, 14, 15, really just wanted to focus on football, kind of saw the path of like, hey, it'd be cool to get a scholarship. I kind of felt like I needed it. You know how it is. Like whenever you're growing up, you feel like that's the only thing that either like fulfills you. It's the only thing that's going to get you right. It's the only thing that's going to get you where you want to go. And growing up, it was, I saw both sides. I saw athletes, obviously, like you. I saw like coaches. I saw the business side. I saw like how quickly things could change. So growing up, I always had in my mind, like, okay, like football is not the end all be all, but it is a really cool way to go, and it's a really cool way to do it. And you can use it as much as it's going to use you, because at the end of the day, everybody gets chewed up, spit out.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned painting in junior high. Was that starting to become more and more of a hobby as you?
It was always a hobby. Like during class when I wasn't paying attention and to stay awake, I'd be drawing on the back of my notes. Finish a test early, draw on the edges. Never wanted to turn it in too quick. So yeah, that's really it, man. Was always drawing. Was always doing everything I could do. But it was was less of a job. It was more of a just for fun thing.
Yeah. And what made you stick more to football as opposed to the other sports?
I'd really just say family. So like my dad growing up in football, that's what I knew, and that's what I felt like the connection towards, and that's what I really wanted to do.
Nice. Okay. And so then going into college, what was that, I guess, experience like? How did you know where you were wanting to go? What were kind of the factors?
I didn't really because, Posh was a college football coach. He's a college football strength coach. So we bounced around. You make all these connections. You end up meeting all these people. And then when you turn like 18, it's like, okay, hey, I should probably hit that guy up and see if I can get going up there. So because you're kind of a kid from nowhere, you're bouncing around all these different places. It's not like I didn't have the need to stay home. I didn't really care that much.
Right, you've already experienced. Like, I can go anywhere now.
Yeah, I could go anywhere. Didn't really matter. So I checked out Stanford, checked out Arkansas State, checked out Tulsa. Where else? I pretty much checked out the whole West Coast, but SMU, I went to their camp with, it was Chad Morris and Van Malone. I went there. I thought it was cool, so it ended up in my list a little bit. I did want to make it back down to Texas. Was at Baylor, obviously, kind of liked it, but going back, it didn't feel like it was before. And then, ended up visiting SMU in March again after my dad was
hired. And what
hired.
year is this?
Yeah, so this was 2018 when I went. Yeah, so I went in 2018, and then I had like 4-ish months to get situated and go. Okay. So it was around like March, maybe might have been earlier. In that 2 months, like January to March.
Okay. And so, and for those who don't know, what position did you play?
I played safety. I came in. Yeah, I played safety. Then I got moved a little bit to like corner, safety, nickel, just like as you gain weight, as you lose weight. And then, after the injury, just played mostly safety. And that was really it. And
what was the injury?
Oh, man, I had 4 surgeries. So when I came into school, I had a rod and 3 screws inside my tibial tubercle. So it popped off. So they had completely reconnected. It was straight leg.
Did that happen? 6 months. That happened in high school?
Yeah. And then in college, I had a tightrope and ankle reconstruction on my left leg.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So 2 robotic legs. It's all good.
Oh, man. I haven't gone through any sort of serious surgeries like that, but how much does that play into like the mentality and your game and, your day to day of like, man, I've really got a little bit of a hindrance here because of these prior injuries.
I mean, I kind of grew up on no excuses. That's just what it was. So like, things kind of like,
I know where that came from.
Yeah, you take them as they are. And when things happen, this is really fun. I was just talking to my parents about this the other day, but my dad came in there after I had my surgery and he was like, yo, you've got 24 hours to feel as bad as you want. Like 24 hours to feel sorry for yourself, 24 hours, like, cuss whoever you want to cuss out. Just like really be down in the dumps. And then like tomorrow, like the work starts, like you gotta get to it. So like the next day I'm just in my room, like doing push-ups. Like I got my broken leg just like stuck on top of my other leg. And I think I'm like 15, 16 at that time. So just kind of like growing up from that and already like that's the standard is no excuses. Like no one cares if your leg was broken. No one cares if like, people do care if you're suffering from something, but at the end of the day, like it's the end product. Like you either did it or you didn't. No one. So, I mean, that's really it. And hindrance wise, like you can't think of it like that. You just got to kind of think of it as your new normal. Yeah. So yeah, that's really it.
No, that's interesting. And, of course, for people that don't know, your dad is the head strength coach at TCU right now. And he was my head strength coach at Baylor. And so many life lessons that stick in my mind. And I remember thinking the one that sticks out for sure is definitely no excuses. It is so important to have in this life as you go through it, because you can always find a reason not to do something. And, now growing a business like I'm trying to do, there's so many excuses you can make to not start and not go. So I'm so glad and thankful that I had, your dad and even, the rest of his coaching staff to support and instill that mental fortitude from such an early age. And so one thing I got to ask is, I want to hear about your dad in high school and like growing up with him, because, we saw one side of him that was very intense and a great motivator and, cared. I don't know if I'm speaking out of pocket here, but it seemed like he did care more about your mental toughness than he actually did your physical toughness. So what's your thoughts on what was it like growing up with him?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's always been big on, it's what's between the ears. Like if you don't start with that and then build the rest up, then it doesn't matter. You're just kind of humbling and bumbling around. So growing up, it was just like, okay, hey, you're gonna read like The Art of War. You're gonna read Sun Tzu. You're gonna read the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. You're gonna read just like anything I could get my hands on or anything like I saw on a dresser if I was interested in. He was like, okay, read it and then bring it back to me and tell me what you learned. And then like with sports, no excuses again. So like no excuses, be disciplined, like be on time, just like be resourceful. That was it. Growing up, it was pretty much kind of the same as what you guys did. It's just like you were born into it, so it was normal. Anytime, you got in trouble, it was 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, do some wall sits until like I really remember.
Stairmaster.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, anything.
You have siblings?
Yeah. I got a little brother and little sister.
And are you middle child?
I'm the oldest, yeah.
Okay.
Oldest of three. So it's three-ish, 2 years from my little sister, and then 6-7 years with my little brother.
Okay. And then how much responsibility did you have, with them growing up?
I mean, I had a fair amount. Like I'm not gonna sit here and tell like it was like a whole lot, but he's like, yo, dropping them off at the bus stop, making sure they had like their lunch, making sure they got home. And it was more just like being able to take care of yourself, take care of them. But at the end of the day, you're still a kid. So I definitely still had like that older brother mentality and just making sure they were taken care of and being the one that was there when both your parents were working. But I don't really have a sob story with that. It's kind of
taking on responsibility.
Is what it is. Do your job. That's one of the. Do you remember the 5 standards?
You're
getting.
I know number 5 is. I know number 5 is no excuses.
Oh man!
We might have to,
no, he's gonna hear this and
cut this part out. No, we're not. We're gonna have to just no excuses on my end. I should remember.
Well, you gotta have like no excuses.
What are they?
Be disciplined. Do your job. And then what was the other one? Be determined, right? And then be relentless.
Relentless.
Yeah, be relentless. And then man, what's number 5? He's gonna be mad if I don't remember.
I thought number 5 was no excuses.
Yeah, I never listed them in order because they always like I know right now they have disciplined, determined, do your job because they had the heavy D's at TCU, and then dignified. Golden rule. That was golden. That's what I forgot.
Golden rule.
Yeah.
Yes. Golden rule.
Yeah. So treat others as you want to be treated, basically. Do your job. Be disciplined. Be relentless. No excuses.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey,
there we go.
If you're watching this,
there we go. I guess, Coach Kaz, I'll have to go video myself on the Stairmaster and send it to you.
Up downs.
Up downs, play pushes.
Yeah. You should cut it right here and then it's like up down. You're up downing.
Yeah. Crop it in. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I wish I would have gotten, I'm sure everybody wishes they could have had kind of that coach from such an early childhood to teach that responsibility and that good work ethic. And I'm curious, going into college, how much did that really prepare you having that type of structure from high school athletics to then college athletics? What was that transition like?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say the structure was so much from like high school athletics. It was just more like life. Take care of your business, like have fun, do what you want to do. But at the end of the day, like do your job. Like do what you do when you're not there, but do everything you can possibly do when you're there and do your job to the fullest. Like no one should be having to look over there. No one should have to count your reps, whatever. So that goes into like showing up study hall, being ready for like the hours, not even like just not knowing what's there, but more like showing up, doing your job, being the standard for people around you. Like that's really it.
Gotcha. And so what were you pursuing for a degree?
I bounced around a little bit. I was going to do business, but then I was like, no, I'd rather just like start one. And then I was going to do marketing. And then I was like, this isn't creative enough for me. And then I found the advertising program at SMU. And they were working in Photoshop. They were doing InDesign. They were doing all these things that I didn't really, that was the first time I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing creatively. And they kind of fine tune you. They let you do what you want, but they guide you like, hey, this is good design because it meets these rules, and you have to know these rules to break them. So then it still is good design. And that's how I kind of fell in love with being a designer. And then like being a better designer made me a better artist. I understood colors. I understood how people were looking at things. I understood where people's eye were going, and I fell in love with it, man. Like, so yeah, graduated with a creative advertising degree. Then I had like 3 minors. It was corporate communication and public affairs. What was the other one? Graphic design, and then the second one was sociology. I think, yeah.
So I would have to assume you were probably the only football player.
I was the
first
football player in the SMU advertising program.
First one
ever. They only take 15 people a year.
Oh wow! So what was that application process like, and why do you feel like you were able to get in?
Man, really, like, I think they saw a lot of potential in me. So
that's awesome.
The process kind of goes like, you write a whole bunch about like what you think advertising is, and then you go in and they give you a question. I think mine was it was something about like what is now, and you have to do a write up about like what is now to you, and then after that you go into the creative application. So you come up with something. It's got to be like, it's like 18 by 24, something they can put in the office, and then you either paint something, you draw something, you make a video, you do whatever you want, you bring in like a sculpture, and it's literally whatever they kind of think is cool or kind of speaks to a bigger idea. That's how you end up in the program.
What did you do?
Honestly, I think I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. I don't even know, Willie, if you're hearing this, but I wrote a whole bunch. I wrote a whole bunch of like words. So it was like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and when people write things over and over and over again. So I did that really early. So it was like pain. It was like Mike Tyson talking about like who he was and like why he was like hurt, and Evander Holyfield, and like the contrast between the two, and how like the whole thing behind the piece was that these two guys are such different people, but at the end of the day, like they are striving for greatness. They're striving to have their name in the record book. They're striving to take care of their families, and like they had this thing that drives them to try and be more. I remember I was watching Troy, and like Achilles was, crazy. But Achilles was just like, it's a little kid. And he goes, "Oh, I could never fight a man like that." And it's like, that's why no one will remember your name. Yeah. And you're just like, yo, okay, like it's just, those two guys remind me of giants, and like a giant fighting a giant, like they're trying to get people to remember their names. And then they ended up in the record books, they ended up who they were, and they both fought like their own demons and their own stuff, and they ended up there in that moment, and they created that generational kind of setting. So they just like, it spoke to me, so I ended up doing it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Did you so when did you join, like your junior year? Like,
I think going into my junior year. So sophomore sure, got the papers, whatever. Junior year, that was COVID, so that was my first semester with them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with COVID, were you able to do like in person?
Nah, it was all online. So I remember, because I was the first football player, the classes didn't match with the football schedule at all.
Like 3 p.m.
Yeah. So I was all our practices were in the morning. So I was leaving practice early to go to class. And sometimes like, because it was COVID, I could get away with like jogging a little bit late. So my class would start at 9:30. Practice would be over at 10, but the last 5 periods would be kind of like emphasis or something to where you just go over stuff you messed up from practice. So like, okay, Rod, like go ahead, you can miss it. Obviously class is important. But I would wait until like the last minute, and then I would sprint to the locker room, get on my phone, and just like listen to class and present stuff that I did before. So just stuff like that, just figuring it out. Yeah. And, but now like,
no excuses.
What's really cool is because like, because we did that. And when I say we, I mean like people who like influenced me to do those things, and people who like really believed in me enough to like say, hey, you can do this. Like, don't drop the classes, don't drop the major. Like you can make it even though nothing makes sense. But when we did that, they ended up being able to connect athletics to the advertising program a lot more. So now like that lane is open to a lot more guys.
Oh, wow.
Where like they're able to be more creative now that like the advertising major and the creative major is really open to them to apply just like everybody else. But nobody knew what it was when I was in school. Like it wasn't one of the majors that was like on the list. It's like guys were in like, you know, like sports marketing, whatever it was. But like I didn't know you could be creative as a profession. And then me and my professors kind of figured out this way to bring a bunch of guys in, bring a bunch of like, you know, like all sports. When I say guys, my bad, but we brought all the sports in and they had like a conference and they taught them all about advertising and what they could do, and kind of just had like a little, not career fair, but major fair for the athletes. That was really cool.
Yeah. Did you, so were you happy with the major the reason I ask is when I went to Baylor, I actually ended up being a science major and,
Science.
you know, not doing anything science related at all. I'm still glad I took that route. It instilled a lot of good habits for me when it comes to studying and prioritization and really like some complex learning that I don't think I would have learned otherwise. And then another big part too, that I'm very thankful that I did do science, was I really dove into the psychology classes and those components. And honestly, I think it should be a requirement for every business major to have to take multiple psychology classes, because they go hand in hand. So I'm very thankful for that, and honestly think those psychology classes actually set me up better for the business and professional world than what I'm hearing from, you know, some of my colleagues of them taking business classes that weren't really applicable and aren't using today. So
yeah,
curious if, you know, the major you chose were happy with, or if you would have changed anything.
Yeah, super happy with it, man. Everything I do in my life now is creative. Everything surrounds creativity. So it's mentally exhausting, but you are excited to wake up every day. You're like, okay, you know you're going to have to make something today. Like whether it's a graphic, whether it's a painting, whether it's, you know, just coming up with a advertising and marketing plan. Like I use everything I learned all the time, even if I like, you know, like, and when I say everything I learned, I mean like everything, the classes that I dropped, I use that. And for the major, 100%, I'd say I was super happy with it.
Why do you think that, you know, former football players and anybody else in sports was not pursuing this type of degree before?
I think honestly, I've had this conversation, and we took it to like the third level, so like the department and everything like that, but it was just because it wasn't readily accessible. Like I would 100% chose this my freshman year if I would have known it was a thing. But I mean, it was business. People think business is the only way you can make money, and like because it's a general degree at first, and then you can go into finance, you can go into accounting, you can go whatever. But people are like, okay, like I want to start a business. I'm gonna do business. But people don't know you can like start an advertising agency. You can freelance as a creative. You can be an artist. You can do whatever. You just have to know like how to promote yourself, how to do that stuff. Like you're gonna have to pick up like how to do, like you don't even have to do your taxes. You just have to hire somebody to do them. But
right,
you just have to like know the different components you need and then create that team around you. Then you can do it.
Right, because whenever I asked you, you know, why you were choosing the major that you did, you said, I didn't choose business because I wanted to start my own business.
Yeah. And when I say that, it's more just like, I know I learned the best by doing it and just finding a mentor. I'm like, hey, I want to know what you did. Show me how you did it. I want to go through your day-to-day every day for a year. I'll go through it for 3 months. As like I had 4 or 5 internships when I was in school. So I watched the creative consultants do what they did. Then I watched the CEO over at Market Scale do what he did. I watched his day-to-day. I watched how long he was in the office. I watched who he hired, who he didn't hire, who he brought in, why he hired me. And I was like, okay, he's building, like a lot of it was like team building. A lot of it was the psychology of like putting different personalities together. Who do you think is going to fit with your culture? And then I just related that to football and how that whole thing was ran. So I'm thinking of it like, okay, you've got your chairman, you got your CEO, you got your COO, you got your CFO, you got all of your middle management, and then you have like the people who are just there. I'm like, okay, how do I do that for myself? If I'm trying to be an artist, how can I find someone to help me with my financials? How can I find someone to help me either send these emails, make these new connections, find new business? What do I need? And with everything that I needed, I just found somebody that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, totally. It compares so much to football. I think about it all the time as I build Influxer. It's like all these different pieces, and everybody has a specific job. You have a head coach, you have receivers, you have linemen, and you have cornerbacks in there. It's like your dad said, like when you're one-on-one, like everybody needs to do their job and you'll do so much better as a team. And so, yeah, it's important about getting the right people in the right position. You could have an all-star player,
wrong position. It might just be the wrong culture for them too. Like he might not just like where he's at. So like I was talking to this, one of my former coaches was in the military, and she was talking about this bar, and she was saying like the bar was in the same place, but she came back 10 years later and it was a completely different crowd, completely different alcohol was being sold, completely different vibe. And she was like, I'm not the one that changed, like the bar changed. So maybe the place wasn't right for me anymore. Like you can, and another cool thing I kind of like noticed just being around is like, you can move. If you're not happy doing something, do something else, like find something else. And, I feel like maybe that comes from a place of privilege because but I don't know, like I just found myself as like, I wanted to be a creative. So I made myself find something creative to do. I've made myself like find a way to like sustain myself creatively. And, I'm just going to do that for as long as I can. And when I can't, I guess I'll move on.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you found your own path and found your own way, and like a path that didn't exist for football players or other athletes really for the creative side of things while doing sports in college. So, fast forward 2021, July of 2021, NIL passes. You have obviously made a name for yourself in that arena, in that industry.
Yeah.
What sparked that? What sparked you wanting to pursue more of that avenue and just see what was there?
Same thing. Pops called me, I think like a week before, and he was like, you need to have everything ready. You need to have a website. You need to have a show the first day it drops. You need to do this. You need to do this. And like he was like probably the first person to say, you need to do all these things the very first day it happens.
And so this is going into your senior year.
This is going like right in my senior year. I think it was like in June when he calls me. Everything happens in what, July 1st. Yeah. So he's like, I have like a week to find a place to like have a show and do all this stuff. I'm like stressing out trying to do it. And he was like, you know how he is. He doesn't want to hear like, hey, it's really hard to find a venue. It's really hard to do this. So
right.
I started, excuses. Yeah, no excuses. But like when he says show, I'm like in my head, I'm like, okay, how can I have a show on my own timing? So then like you obviously, that was my first introduction into the virtual world. So you go into not NFTs and stuff like that. Sorry about that, man. But that's fine. Actual alarm to start painting. But yeah, so that day one, July 1st, that was my first intro into the digital world too, because I needed to find a way to show my work without having to have a space, find a venue, pay for a space, do all that. And I tweeted it out. I was just like, hey, here's my site. Here's everything I've done. Here's some of my work. Here's some of my art. Boom. You can walk through my virtual gallery. You just drag your finger and find any piece you like. And
so you built a website that had your art. Was it pictures of your art or was it digital art?
Yeah, the website had like, you could buy it. It had pictures of my art. Everything. Yeah, it was digital art. And it was also like, you could buy physical pieces of my work too. So I had the fully functioning website, launched it July 1st.
Wow. How long did it take you to build that?
Man, it took me about like 2 days, just like nonstop. Lost a few pounds, but they were like, hey, if you're doing your thing, it's cool. Like you'll gain it on the back end.
Wow. So you just went ham.
I went ham.
Building this website. You only had just a few days to prepare before so you knew that NIL was going to be passed when your dad called because it was.
Well, I saw the graphic on Instagram and I was like, maybe not. But then my dad called me and was like, hey, even if it doesn't happen 100%, you need to be ready.
Just be ready. No harm in being ready.
No harm in being ready. So like we just went balls to the wall for that week. And it was like, okay, what do I want to say? What are my brand pillars? And I'm like trying to figure out like what I want to do in a week.
So you must have had all this art, already made. So this was already you were already doing this over the past couple of years, few months?
Yeah, I was so over COVID, because we didn't, we were in the crib all hours of the day. Yeah, all the time. I just started buying more art supplies, buying more paint. Started out with some Greek statues, and like people just wanted more and more and more. And the more I posted, the more people wanted. And that was my first time ever really even coming into contact with name, image, and likeness. It was like, hey, by the way, you can't sell anything as RaSun Kazadi. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, oh, just like, yes, make everything separate. Don't show your face. Don't put your name on it. Don't do anything. And I was like, they're like, don't promote it. If you're painting something and you post it, say like, hey, this is a painting. Don't say where you can find. Don't like. I was like, wait. Okay, but this has nothing to do with football. This is just me. And that was my first time coming into contact with the issues of name, image, likeness.
So once that passed, it was...
Yeah, once it passed, it was just go time. I had all the work. I just needed somewhere to sell it, and I needed to be able to.
What was the plan? Was the plan to do it after college?
Yeah, the plan, I mean, when it came to that, it was just like finding something to do, like be an illustrator, work at an advertising agency, and then find my way into that community and network with different artists, network with different galleries. But then it just all accelerated like times 1,000.
So yeah, I guess take me through those first couple months. Then your website goes live. You're selling all this art. Was it something that you were like, okay, I gotta, supply the demand, or?
Yeah. So then you start trying to get creative with like prints, stickers. You just like make people do like pre-orders on stuff. Yeah. Like you get creative with t-shirts, and now you're like really going into like product differentiating. Then you're just like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I supply people with all my work? And that's just how it happened. It was just like, we were just always trying to figure something out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how long did that go on? And like, was there any other projects that you started working on, or anything you did with NIL, kind of that first fall semester, football season? What did that look like for you?
Man, really, it was just like, I mean, I'm still playing football. I was still in school. I was still trying to graduate. So,
you're already busy enough, and then you throw in this component.
Yeah, I was already, but then like, yeah, people were starting to want their paintings on time. Like I signed a deal with Rogers Healy, and it was a painting every month. And like, I was doing it for 3 or 4 months, and I was like, yo, hey man, like I really need to graduate. We're going to have to like kind of figure this out again. Yeah. Like, I need a few, like, let's do every other month, or let's do every 3, just so I can make sure it's a good painting and I'm not trying to crank it out. And once you phrase it as like, hey, I'm actually trying to do a good job, people are way more like, okay, yeah, we'll give you some time.
So was that your first NIL deal, other than obviously selling?
I had a lot. Like, technically every piece I sold was an NIL deal to them. So I sold, one of the first pieces I actually sold was to my athletic director.
Wow.
Yeah, Rickard, appreciate you, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome getting that support, especially at a school like SMU, where NIL, they were doing it in the 80s a little bit. So how was being at SMU?
They were super
the beautiful
careful.
Irony of being at SMU and NIL passes.
They were super careful. Other schools, other schools like went into it face first and were like able to like fall and stuff. SMU was like, we're gonna take our time. Figure this whole thing out. We're not doing this again. And even when I like sold the painting to Rick, it was like, he was like, hey, Ra, like make sure you put everything in there, put the date, make sure like we're all square, put it into Influxer. And that was it. So like they were making sure that everyone logged every single deal that they did. And especially the big ones. And I got some pretty nice ones just from like doing art, and like it was like we were talking about earlier, like structuring deals and like trying to figure out how I could supply that demand. So it's like, okay, hey, once every month I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do these designs for you, or I'll act as a creative consultant for your company. And that was my first sort of way into like entrepreneurship. I didn't even really, like I knew what it was, but I had no idea what really went into it.
Yeah, that's the unspoken part about NIL is it's not just making some cash, it's preparing you for the real world.
Yeah.
You're now looking at contracts and invoices and building out a website and having a business plan. And documenting everything properly for taxes, it really sets you up nicely for a career and a business. And that's something I always wish, I was always able to take part of. Not that I was any sort of star player, but there were certainly opportunities. Just my mindset was, I'm an entrepreneur. So I could find a way to do something or sell something, e-commerce. It doesn't necessarily have to be my name. I remember when I was at Baylor, actually, this was, I guess, 2014 or 15, I would get DMs from these apparel brands asking me to, they would send me product and I would post it, and then they would give me, $100 and $150. And unfortunately, I was not able to do so.
Yeah.
And I remember going into our compliance office, and I'm like, it's $100. And I'm like, I'm a walk-on at the time. So I'm not even on
need the cash
scholarship. And I'm like, I could use this cash. I would really like to just post this t-shirt, So at the time, influencer marketing was just in the early stages. And so compliance officer said no, as he should, doing his job. That same compliance officer, ironically, is actually our VP of compliance at Influxer now. So full circle. I came into Baylor after my second year. I earned a scholarship for the football team, so I was done being a walk-on, and then actually signed my scholarship papers in front of our now VP of compliance at Influxer, who was also telling me no to NIL deals back in 2015. So yeah, it's crazy how life comes
new world
full circle. But like I said, it's the unspoken part about NIL that people don't realize. And on top of that, 80% of student athletes come from a background of living below the poverty line. And it's not just about the pay for play and, you go to this university. It's like, no, they can actually make an impact and start a business, or help a local business get some exposure that they may desperately need. And there's so many advantages to it that people don't talk about enough. And one thing us at Influxer is really trying to expose is these types of stories. Because, it wasn't for you, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I need to make this so I can be the best safety. It was like, no, I have a passion for art, and I just want to be able to do that. And now I'm able to
do it. Yeah. Just wanted to be like authentically like me 100% of the time, not have to like do any weird stuff, just like be 100% me. And I really did like what you said about like community, because like NIL also gave us the chance to like start a nonprofit in school. And it was me and a bunch of other football players and my friend Reagan McGinnis, and we all came together, created a nonprofit, and now we're still doing it. We just finished a backpack drive like the other day, and it's been going crazy. It's like one of my favorite things that we've ever done. But we wouldn't have been able to do it without NIL. We weren't allowed to promote the nonprofit because we were student athletes before NIL, because we started it in 2020. Well, we really couldn't do anything unless it was like natural PR.
Right.
Yeah. So luckily, like for us, like we got some of that. And then when 2022 came around, or 2021, it was just like, boom. And we saw, you could see the difference. It was crazy.
So you were doing your online store of all of the art, digital art, and the stuff that you were making. And that was going well. Clearly you were signing with third parties, Rogers Healy, to produce art. Did you have any other deals that you were signing?
Yeah. I was working with Zealous, so it's a NFT company. They did stuff with like Mike Tyson.
Nice.
They did stuff with Tupac, the artist who did Tupac's album cover. They've done work with I think different comedians right now, Eric Dickerson. And
SMU NIL.
SMU NIL, yeah. So like that was a really big part, and shout out to those guys for giving me an opportunity too, and just like really opening my eyes to the creative part of business. And that's like that's another thing, like I can specialize in being like creative entrepreneur rather than like other stuff that I have no knowledge about. Like if you ask me about real estate, I'd look at you crazy. If you ask me about I don't know, drop shipping or something like that, I'm like, look, dude, I don't. But if you ask me how do you do a payment plan with creative opportunities, or how can you build this website? How does it make money? Then I'm like, okay, let's do it. Yeah, I can do any of that stuff. Anything else? No.
So you were doing that all through the fall,
Mm-hmm.
and then going into the spring, you know, once you were done with football, done with, I guess, your eligibility, right? At the end of the fall of 21.
I had a few more, but I decided to dip. Yeah.
You decided to dip. So what did you do that final semester?
I was still with the team, so it was like a long decision. But I was with the team. Rhett Lashley came in, good guy, a lot of good coaches.
So you were going through like spring practice and everything. You were preparing to play in 2022.
Yeah, and so the same thing happened again. A bunch of my classes ran into my spring ball schedule. Kind of felt that like, you know, hey, like maybe it's time for me to move on to doing this full time, because that was like, it wasn't that football like wasn't fulfilling to me anymore. It was just like I found something that really made me like want to like wake up. I found out that like that was more my reason of waking up than playing football was. So then like we were talking about before, if you're not 100% in it, that's where like the danger comes in. And I just decided like, okay, let's do this. Let's just try. Like, you know, if everything goes wrong, you can still go back to school and play football.
Wow, that's so interesting, because that wouldn't have happened if NIL didn't pass.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other, you know, former student athletes that happened to. They were able to discover a new passion and step away from football because they now have the means to pursue that passion that they were restricted from for so long. Wow, that is interesting. So I guess like tell us a little bit more about NIL in the spring of 22, and then kind of into the summer. What was your plan to continue that? I mean, was there any like blurred lines? Did you see it like as a natural progression into a career in the real world?
Yeah, it definitely was it felt like a natural progression. Like I met a lot of people that I was working with even now through art, through design, and I still have a lot of those same contacts. I can hit them up if I need something. They can hit me up if they need something. And like everything I learned, like business wise, or learned how to work with people, or learned how to look at a contract, like, you know, as well as I can, I learned during my period at NIL, and I've only expanded on that knowledge now. I view this whole year right out of school as my redshirt year. I'm like, I'm learning, I'm sitting back. Like I've recently told to fail fast. So
fail
like
fast.
if I mess up, I take it and I'm like, okay, cool. It's like when you busted coverage as a freshman, everybody's like, oh, they effing freshman. Yeah, it's like, but like it's never that serious. And this is all practice to me right now.
No, that's awesome. So you did graduate in the spring of 22.
Yeah, spring of 22.
Okay. And then what did you immediately start doing after graduation?
Immediately started doing All-Stars. So I immediately started doing All-Stars and came on as a designer. Then he kind of noticed that I knew how to do a bunch of different stuff.
So what is All-Stars?
All-Stars is a collectible card company that works with different designers from all over the world. We partner up with athletes. And basically, we just create something that we both love, and then we put it out to the community. It's personalized to each athlete, so it's got like their stats, a quick bio about them, and it also has something on the artist. So it's got an artist bio, a little artist picture,
which is you,
everything. Yeah, not even just me. It's like so.
But it's
yeah. A lot of them are me, but it's like so we partner with some guys out in Malaysia. There's a girl out in the Ukraine. There's a girl in Moscow. And then designers that are in the US, we partner with them on different cards. So yeah, man, it's people from all over the world just come together, common goal, same as football really. But yeah, I started with them right after school, came on as a designer, then was kind of just doing a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes and getting athletes on. And he was like, hey, do you want to do that? Do you want to get athletes on the app? And that's what I ended up doing. In addition to being a designer, then contracts come into play, and then you need someone to do that. And turns out that it's me too.
Yeah, you're wearing many hats.
Yeah. So, just like it's a startup. So you're just wearing a lot of hats. You're doing a lot of things. And I'm like, yo, you wanted a learning year? This is the best way to get one, So
be thrown into it. So
yeah, just get thrown into it.
So you immediately got into, an NIL company.
Mm-hmm.
And
which was not, I didn't want to be around sports at all.
Really?
Yeah, when I graduated, I was like, I'm not going into sports. I'm gonna go, paint. Like, man, I might go to Europe and figure something out, Like really, like I was gonna go do like real artist stuff, like go try and go to art school, get my MFA. I was thinking about it all. I was even thinking about like I took a visit up to like UCLA, and like right after I graduated in May, and yeah, man, I was all over the place, and then now I'm working on All Stars, still painting, still working with a lot of people, still really excited.
Yeah, you still running your website?
Yeah, so I'm revamping my whole website. So now that I looked at it and I was like, dude, I got to redo this. Like 2 years old, you did it in a week. You can try to fix the bones of something, but at some point you just got to redo it.
Just got to scrap it.
Yeah, you got to scrap it. Yeah, you know how it is. Look at your face.
Totally.
Just got to scrap it.
Can relate to that.
So now it's up. I hope I get the same domain name, but so I bought that. It'll be fun doing it again and then seeing what that's like.
Gotcha. So you're doing All Stars, you're doing nonprofit, you're doing your website. What else are you doing?
I mean, that's really it. So art, nonprofit, working on a few t-shirts. So Get Risky is the name of the company, but basically we do personalized t-shirts of the athletes, just something for fun that kind of started that way. And now, we're doing that as something serious and really thinking about it. Another way to use design skills and stay in athletics, which, I felt like I was always going to be done. Yeah. And then it's just like, what's that? The Sopranos. He's like, just when I was out, they pulled me back. Yeah. But it's just doing a lot and having fun with it. I think that's something that I missed in school, just being kind of busy. Yeah. But just being able to have fun with everything I'm doing right now.
Cool. So what's next for, you and All Stars? Right now it's the trading cards. And are the trading cards, they're physical, but do you also sell them digital?
Yeah. So they're physical and they have like digital assets inside. So we just combine everything with the physical card. So
okay.
Yeah, when you buy the card, you get it. There's a QR you can scan, and inside of it is different deals from different companies, like whether they're local, whether they're national, they're all in there. So it's a deal for the fan, the artist, and the athlete.
And so what's the benefit for the student athlete?
So the student athlete gets a percentage of the net profits every single time that the card sells. And then
just like an NFT.
Yeah, just like an NFT, like kind of based on that whole smart contract situation. And then they also get proceeds from the marketing deals too, whenever people click it. So the company's budget kind of goes through that card at another channel. Basically.
Explain that process to me.
So it's kind of like when you're running ads on Instagram and you're going through your cost per acquisition, like cost per whatever.
Yeah, cost per click, cost
per impression, everything like that. Same channel. So it's kind of like the card is that ad channel.
How are people accessing the card then?
So you get the card and there's just a QR right on the back, smack dab. So we try to make it easy for the consumer. It just shows up and it just swipe. And you just click whatever deal. Remember those cards that we kind of got as kids where if you bought the card for $10, you get a bunch of coupons to the surrounding stores? Yeah. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And so then the advertisers are paying you to be on these QR codes in the websites.
And then therefore paying the athlete. Yep.
Therefore paying the athlete via royalties.
Yep.
Wow. That's really interesting. Is anybody else doing that?
I mean, not that we know. Hopefully, I think we patented it.
Oh, really? That is, I haven't heard of that. But I mean, obviously with NIL and student athletes, there's so many just new and interesting concepts.
And somebody's going to come up with something new in a few months where we'll be like, what? How'd they do that?
So how do you envision, I guess, what's your 5-year plan?
My 5-year plan, man, year one, obviously building year.
Redshirt year.
Yeah, redshirt year. And then year two, you're not a veteran yet, but you're able to build and grow. So really growing everything that from the nonprofit, bringing on a bigger team. So having hopefully a whole content team, social media team, bringing in a management team that's what they do. They run the nonprofit and they run it better than I ever could, hopefully. And then with the art, everything is about just bringing in a bigger team right now. So I do want that content. I want to be able to run around. I obviously want more business, but I want to be able to do it better. So I want delivery more on time. I want more prints. I want probably more products. So going back to the skateboards that I was doing, going back to like even the t-shirts, just having readily accessible gear for people to use. My whole thing with the art is art as a verb. I don't want ever to be stagnant. I love big pieces of art, but not everybody can afford them, and sometimes they sit in people's garages. I don't want to make art that sits in garages and
Right.
storage units. Then with All Stars, stole this straight from a Positive Playbook, but you obviously like you win your one-on-one, so other companies are kind of doing similar things, like that's what you want to win. And then you win Dallas, you get the whole city involved. You win Texas, then you win the conference, and then hopefully you go nationwide. So that's my plan right there. Yeah, and if you just do like that, man, that's all I got.
Yeah, you just got to follow that process.
Yeah, it's all about the process too. Like I definitely keep the end goal in mind, but everything I do now is for that. But I know that not everything is going to go the way I want to. So I just got to be trying to be ready for the pivot.
Yeah, and that's how you're supposed to visualize it. Is what's that end goal, and then work backwards from there.
Exactly.
Figure out, okay, what steps need to take? What steps do I need to take? And then from the very beginning, it's like, okay, I do this daily. This will eventually get me to my
just making meaningful connections right now to where I can be like, okay, if my art's in a hotel, I made that connection 3 years ago.
Right.
It wasn't random. It's not just because he liked my art. Like we've been building that. He knows I'm trustworthy. Maybe he got a piece for his crib at the same time. Who knows? just stuff like that.
Is there anything else that All Stars is looking to get into that you are allowed to say? Just like ventures that, right now you got the trading cards, you want to dominate Dallas, you want to get all the businesses on board here, but is there a different vertical that y'all that's a good segue to pursue, or anything y'all thought of?
I don't think nothing I'm allowed to say right now.
Yeah.
I think they got me under contract. They got
totally.
me, I'm shackled here, but no, there's a lot of verticals that we're really interested in, and we think it's obviously like a replicable process. Like I think if we do this really well and we find a way that works with this, then it's like if you get student athletes, you're managing talent, you're doing contracts, and then like everything else is like it's almost entertainment too. You can do whatever.
Yeah, and so you have that 5-year plan. Let's fast forward 20, 25 years. Do you have a specific ambition? You said, when you're talking about you're picking your college major, that you didn't choose business because you want to start your own business. What would be that business down the road?
Yeah, so I can give you my big idea. You want that?
Yeah, let's hear that. Yeah. That's perfect.
Honestly, like because I'm all over the place, I've always been interested in everything. It's more about just like, for me, having a small piece in every single sector, like whether it's tech, whether it's even medicine, whether it's like being able to rehab, the nonprofit sector, art, design, whatever. But I found that being a creative allows me the ability to float between those worlds because everybody needs it right now.
Right.
So my 5-year plan would be my 25-year plan would be able to owning a piece of all that stuff, and just like really having like a grasp on something in every single one of those industries.
Yeah. This podcast is called Manifesting. So, you got to speak it. You got to speak it into existence here.
Yeah.
And really just lay it out there. You want to own a piece of all of these different verticals.
Yeah.
How are we getting there? What's that step?
First, right now, it'd be like making those connections. So whether it's communication. So for example, I don't know if you remember him, but like Keith Nelson, like reaching back into my past, talking to those guys. Like if I want to get into broadcasting, I'm talking to him. I'm like, hey, how did you do your job? How did your job coincide with this guy's job? Who runs this company? How can I get to know this guy? How can I understand his day to day? And how can I understand what made that guy who he is so that I could do something else? And like just building there. And like, I wouldn't say like sounds bad when you say like just like taking people's jobs, but like I do want what a lot of those guys have, and I want to be able to like do it not do it their way, but do it better. So taking their path and just fixing it.
No, totally. That's what a lot of people should do, and is the right thing to do is figure out what other people do and what makes it work for them. And once you group a bunch of different opinions of how people find success in their own ways, but learning, you interview 10 people of, hey, what made you successful? You can pick and choose exactly like, oh, I like that part of it. Or, that may have worked for them and I see that and that fits their personality, but that's not going to work for me because that doesn't fit my personality. And so you're able to really form your own path. And I think a lot of people are too afraid to ask for a mentor or ask somebody who has been successful. But in return, like those successful people love talking about what has got them to this point. And they're a lot more helpful than you would think. And so they want to help people that want to be helped.
Yeah. Like
they're not just going to go try and tell you.
Like, as long as you're not approaching anybody with like malice, like they know why you're there. Like you want to do what they do, or you want to do it better. Like, and they sense that, and they're like, okay, cool. Like, why wouldn't I pass on like what I've learned? And a lot of people are really open to that. And if they're not, you just find somebody who is.
Right. So in 25 years, you own all these different pieces. What do you want to do with that? Do you have any sort of like life fulfilling, like sort of mantras? You're clearly into giving back with the nonprofits, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I just want it all so I can give it all, really. That's like the end of the end of the day, like I want to give it all back. Like I don't like I grew up like my dad's an immigrant. I grew up hearing the stories about what they went through. I grew up hearing about the stories like my grandma walking across the river with dad on the back, just trying to get to the refugee camp. Like that stuff is intense to hear as a kid, and it forms who you are and like who you help. Like when I first started the nonprofit, my grandma said, keep doing that. That was us a few years ago. So that just kind of like motivates me to have a piece of these industries, because they're all industries that influence people. They all have jobs. They all have ways that you can help out. So that's really it, man. Like there's not much to it. Like pretty simple guy.
Wow. So that's interesting. Your parents were immigrants from where?
Yeah, my dad is an immigrant from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but formerly known as Zaire when he was there.
Wow. And your mom as well? No,
my mom's from like Pittsburgh. So like her family stories all over the place too. But yeah, she moved around a lot. My grandma's grandma was like a slave and a bunch of stuff like that. So just like hearing those stories, going through your genealogy, figuring out where you come from, it just it's important because it tells you, it's corny, but it tells you really where you're going and like why you are the way that you are. Like why do you want to help people so much? It's because like, I feel like I owe it.
You gotta have something that inspires you.
Yeah, I feel like I owe it to everyone.
Wow. Feel like you owe it to everyone.
I feel like I owe it to everyone.
That's interesting with the background that you have. That's not many people would say that. Some other people would take a certain upbringing or certain circumstances and feel like they are owed something and that they could be a victim. And your approach and mindset is the opposite. It's like, because I did all that, because my family has, come over from Africa and Democratic Republic of Congo, and your ancestry went through slavery, you feel compelled to give back. That's powerful. Yeah, that's powerful. And how do you feel like the best way is you're gonna get back?
Best way, I just think doing the work and like investing in the community you're in. I'm not from Dallas, but hopefully people in Dallas feel like I've invested in Dallas, and I've tried to do the best that I could, learning the city, figuring out where it's from, figuring out who the people are that are helping. Just growing up, just leave it better than you found it. Make sure all the weights are racked up in the same place. Like, like make sure you guys have the BUs up. Yeah. So make sure the logo's up, make sure everything's clean, like wipe down the water, wipe down your section. Like Yeah, just leave stuff better than you found it, and make sure like everything's in order when you bounce.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good mindset to have.
Yeah, and that's like when it comes down to plans. For me, it's just like my plan is to wake up and do better than I did the next day, and like, okay, what did I learn? And consistently taking a note of where I'm at, and you 1% better every day.
Totally.
You could have the goal of being an All-American, but at the end of the day, things happen. Like
Right.
Everybody comes in, everybody wants to win the Thorpe Award.
We all wanted to be
All-Americans. There's only one Thorpe Award winner, but if you're focused on doing better the next day and your goal is, hey, I want to be a great man, I want to do this, then like everything you do is going to be focused on being a great man. And if everything you're doing is being focused on being a Thorpe Award winner, you're going to take every day seriously, even if you don't get there. But like, you're improving, you're getting close to that goal. It's just like some things aren't up to you.
Yeah. And then appreciation along the way and being grateful for, how far you have come and the people that have entered your life that have made an impact is vastly important. That's something I'm, learning and not struggling with, but constantly improving, always striving for greatness. So always good to look back and reflect on the people that did help you along the way and inspired you and, made you who you are. So, that's exciting. I'm excited to see everything that you accomplish over these next few years. Do you think you'll stay in Dallas?
I have the itch to go everywhere. And I think Dallas, because it's in the middle, makes for the perfect place. But
you can fly out to
anywhere. Yeah, man, you can go anywhere. So I like Dallas. I definitely think of it as a home base.
Yeah.
Now. Like when people say, where are you from? Like I want to say Dallas, but people in Dallas might hate me a little bit. But I love Dallas, and I think I'll stay. But yeah, New York calls my name all the time, and I love the East Coast, love the West Coast. What about you? Where are you at? You think you're staying in Dallas?
I'm here in Dallas right now. Similar to what you said, New York actually calls my name a lot. I've grown an affinity towards it. So, but it just also kind of depends. I mean, Influxer can go in so many different directions right now. And, right now we're actually in the middle of a capital raise. So it's going very well. We're very excited in how we're going to deploy this money it's ultimately going to, provide for building our business is going to provide for thousands of student athletes. Yeah. So excited about that. And then, being in the NIL industry, it can get very big. And it already is very big. I mean, it went from a $0 industry in June of 21 to multi-billion-dollar industry 1 month later with the law passed. And, it's projected to be north of a $10 billion industry in the next 5 years. So, with that being said, just simple economics of growing a business, I don't think there's ever going to be a need to stop raising capital per se. Mm-hmm. I think that, this first round is really going to get us to where we want to go for the next 2 years. And then from there, it's really like going to the moon. And in order to do that, you're going to need working capital. So I think New York could be a really good city for that.
That's where it's at, yeah.
Because we could really raise the proper capital that we need, as well as, not just working with student athletes, but there's also the flip side of the brands and the businesses that will also want to work with the student athletes and do the big endorsements like you see the professionals do. But, you have a much smaller amount of professionals than you do the 700,000 student athletes and cheerleaders and, junior all over the country. So building those relationships like you're talking about with just larger corporations and larger businesses that can provide an extreme amount of value to Influxer, which I view Influxer as a company that's providing a lot of value to student athletes. So somebody's providing value to Influxer, that value is then transferred into the student athletes and their families. Yeah.
What's your 5-year plan for like yourself, Influxer, and then what else are you doing?
Influxer.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's your 5-year plan for you and Influxer?
Yeah. For me, personally, I need to get in better shape. I need to.
Yeah. You look good though, man. It's all good.
I appreciate it, but I need to get back in the weight room and get back into some conditioning and, get my heart rate and everything flowing more. That's a big personal goal of mine. And, really for the Influxer side, and that's so I can be the best version of myself for Influxer. Being a CEO and founder, you got to wear a lot of hats. You got investor relations, you have HR, you have marketing, you have a team and interviews, and then the whole creative side of things. So there's a lot that goes into it. And so working out and training prepares your mind and releases all those good endorphins. So doing that is so important, and I don't do it enough. And then, like I said, for Influxer, we want to grow. We want to offer as many different NIL solutions as possible. Like whenever you think about NIL, I want you to think about Influxer, because we can take care of it. We're going to have the marketplace for the hundreds of thousands of student athletes to be exposed to NIL opportunities, and be working with brands and building those relationships and having that open network to do so through Influxer. Then on top of that, supplying all the tools that are necessary to run an e-commerce component of a student athlete. Student athlete wants to sell custom merch. We can be that platform for you. We can be that incubator. You come to us, we'll take care of everything, and then of course hand it off to you once you're done and you're graduated. Really just being consultants and performing speaking engagements. Right now we have several schools that have inquired and have signed contracts with that are going to fly us out to go speak in front of their student athletes and talk about name, image, and likeness, and how to build a personal brand, and how to preserve it, how to take care of it, and how to grow it. I mean, how to grow your social media following and get more involved on the creative side, because they're not teaching that in school. They haven't had any means to do so. And, with our team, we're a perfect mix of former student athletes, former compliance officers who've gotten the taste of the business world, that have now, hey, we know what it's like to be in your shoes. We've been there. We know how busy you are. Now you throw NIL into the mix. You don't want to be working with all of these different companies. We want you to think of Influxer, and you can come to us for anything. You want merch? We got you. You want to start a podcast? We got you. You want to, do social media promotions? Here's our marketplace. All of it is free for the student athletes. That's going to ultimately enable them to be the best version of themselves in the future. And we also have plans, beyond college for these student athletes. Like we have plans to, provide career solutions, because 99% of student athletes don't go pro. And finding that career, you were fortunate and I was fortunate where we were able to land a job, pretty immediately after college, but a lot of players aren't able to do so. And one thing I've learned is that it's not because of a lack of ability or skill by them, but it's actually because businesses and brands kind of assume that student athletes have something lined up or figured out when they graduate, but they actually don't. And so preparing champions for life is really what we're after. We're not just looking to, have you succeed in college. We really care about that next level, and educating and changing the narrative. So that's a big goal for Influxer, is being that go-to resource, all things NIL, but also forward thinking of, we also have solutions that are going to prepare you for the real world, and for former student athletes as well. I mean, building a community with, whether you're 10 years removed, 20 years removed from college, you can still utilize Influxer in some sort of way, because student athletes go through so much. And there's a lot of mental toughness, a lot of ups and downs that most people deal with, that requires, mental strength is important. And also mental health is a real concern, especially for former athletes. So growing that aspect of it too is going to be a huge component.
Yeah, that's something that like I've been thinking about a lot, just like seeing how some of my friends handled that, and especially when they didn't have something else. Like you were saying, I was super fortunate, like just having another identity in my art. But when they didn't have much else, that like really broke them. They didn't really know where they were going and couldn't really figure it out. And I think like I don't know if there's like a pathway or like I don't know, like a master class to help those, like that type of guy out or a person. But that would be amazing, man, because that I've seen that firsthand too.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the goal, man. I love it. I love Influxer. This is where I belong. I've always wanted to start my own business. And, you know, I felt like 2022 was that red shirt year.
Yeah.
And so now it's coming in. It's like you got a lot of expectations. You know, I want to be a 4-year starter. And then after that, I want to go pro. So that's where I'm at in this mindset right now.
When did you guys start Influxer?
We started it. What's funny is the original idea of Influxer was a marketplace app that was going to connect influencers and brands for social media endorsements.
Right.
You know, similar to like Fiverr or Upwork or
then 2021.
Then 2021 happened. So development of the app actually started in April of 2020. So a good over a year before NIL passed. And so that was still the original plan, was it being influencer and brands. Then always kind of knew, okay, there is a possibility that NIL could pass for student athletes, but they've also been talking about that for decades now. So,
yeah.
You know, who knew when it was going to happen, but we were thinking, okay, that could be a possibility and we can have its own separate category for college athletes. So then once it passed, it's still, the app was not in a place where it was ready to be marketed. There wasn't, there were still bugs that needed to be fixed. It was live on the App Store, but then it wasn't until about September of 21, so a few months after the law had passed, that I was actually sitting with a friend of mine here in Dallas at Katy Trail Ice House. And I'll never forget, it was Red River Rivalry. And it was on all the TVs there. And I was sitting with a friend and he was asking me like, hey, you know, what's up with that app? I was like, you know, it's still in the works. Need to put something together. And he was like, well, you know, why don't you just really hot, because at the time I was working on real estate full time too.
Right.
And so I was building this on the side with a third party coder. He's like, why don't you hire somebody to run with it? I was like, that's a really good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that. It's just been right over my head. And then the conversation easily turned into, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. Then, okay, who are you going to target first? You know, influencers, such a broad market. And I'm like, yeah, Red River Rivalry is right there in front of our face. And so I was like, I'm a former student athlete. Why don't we just focus on student athletes and brands instead of influencers? So student athletes and brands. And so that's where kind of that inception happened and that transition happened, was, wow, okay, that is such a niche market that is also a massive market,
right, that
we should focus on. And so that's when it all happened. Made the switch, called my coder the next day, and was like, change every word that says influencer, change it to student athlete, and because all the basic functionality is still there.
Same thing, yeah. Because they are, at the end of the day, you are an influencer. Like, that's what you are. Whether you like it or not, as a student athlete, it's kind of like, if you want to be one, you are one.
You have your own personal brand. And in today's day and age, in 2023 now, people need to realize that you are a brand. You are the CEO of yourself. I think your dad has said that actually when I was in college too.
Treat yourself as a multi-billion-dollar company all the time when you're walking around. And like, when you think of yourself that way, you're kind of like, damn, I need to go to sleep. I need to eat right. I need to stop drinking so much. I need to do this. Like, and like, or I need to, like, you know, be around more, I don't know, like more meaningful connections. Like, you stop wasting so much time when you think of yourself like that.
Absolutely. So, man, I'm really excited for us. You know, we're so young.
Excited for you, man. You're balling.
Not there, man. I got to start. You know, I just got through a red shirt year, and now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to go. So this is it's exciting times. 2023 is going to be a great year for us.
Great year.
So But I appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome to hear your story. I know, in a few months or even a year, we're going to bring you back on and
yes,
catch up.
It's going.
Here you're at. Or I need
Maybe
you.
I'll bring
I need
you
to get
on.
you to start a podcast here.
Let's do
You
it.
would be. I mean, you would absolutely crush it.
Yeah.
You could just be yourself, and I mean, anything you want to talk about or do, or any guests you want to invite on. Like, that's why I have this is, really to build a community and bring in former student athletes, current student athletes, former student athletes. Again, the goal is to build a community because we've all been through the same stuff, and there isn't really a collective network of former student athletes.
Right.
There isn't.
That's really interesting. I like that you said that.
And we need each other. We got to support each other.
100%, because that's a huge network.
Totally. And it's a powerful network. And, you go through such a high in college where you're put on this pedestal and everything's kind of taken care of. And you're in the spotlight and you lose that rug. And that's something that, a lot of people don't go through. Regular people don't go through that. And so building these relationships are going to go a long way, because you never know how, if you're supporting somebody who they know that could then turn into something that's really good for you and your business, which in my case, like I said, if it's good for our business, that means it's good for thousands of student athletes.
And it just goes back to being genuine and, just really actually caring about what people are talking about and who they are.
Yeah. Well,
100%, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me.
That is RaSun Kazadi.